Hey, Billy from Perma Pastures Farm. I would ordinarily do a video like this on the front porch, but the wind is blowing like nobody's business, so I'm having to do it in the podcast studio, which only seems fitting because this is almost certainly going to be the topic for tonight. When I was little, my dad would often take us fishing because it was something we could do, at least a form of entertainment that didn't require money. So when I was younger, my youngest brother and my oldest brother and my dad and I all went to Lake Hefner in Oklahoma. We were going to go fishing. It was kind of a cool day and there really weren't many people out there. So we were in this area, I think on the south side of the lake, where it was something of a peninsula. A little bit of trees out there, so it was difficult to see everything. So my youngest brother and I were fishing on one side, and my oldest brother and my dad were fishing on the other side. There was a pretty good gap between us. And while we were out there fishing, of course, being like every other kid growing up in the 80s, we were told not to talk to strangers. But while we were fishing, a white van pulled up, muddy all the way up to the windows. And out of that van came a black guy and a white guy, very tall. And my brother and I were over fishing. They came over trying to talk to us. It was a little bit of small talk. It was right off the bat, it seemed uneasy. And of course, we were taught not to talk to anybody. So they would ask questions like, how's the fishing going? And things like that. Things that seemed like, everyday conversation. And they kept getting closer and closer and closer to the point where it was obvious there was no way I was going to leave my little brother there. And it was obvious that these guys were up to no good. And at that moment, when it seemed like they were about to make a move, because we were up against the water and the only place for us to go was in the water. That's how close they were getting. One of them heard or saw something, I don't know what it was, and then they immediately jumped in that van, spun out of there, and got out of Dodge. It was about that time I saw my dad and my oldest brother running as fast as they possibly could over to where we were. Those guys were clearly up to no good. Okay? This is all going to make sense, hopefully, in a minute. It wasn't a couple of years later that my brother and I, same younger brother, my dad had sent us up to the corner grocery to go get bread and milk or whatever it was. Same kind of thing happened. Guy pulls up in a car this time, threatened us to get in the car. Of course, that didn't work out well either. We ran away. And I said all that to say this, that here as of late, there's been a whole lot of Amber Alerts going on. I mean, far more than anything I've ever remember seeing in recent time. At the farm where you live gathering, there was a guy there that I know, and he lives locally. And he told me this story about how these guys that appeared to be of, I don't know, Eastern European descent, something like that. And they came up to his farm, to his place of business, which isn't like right there. It's off a little bit off the beaten path. You don't just show up there. And these two guys of Middle Eastern descent get out, apparently well-dressed. And they're going up to their kids asking if they can buy chickens, if they can buy eggs. Just bizarre nonsense, just out of nowhere. Later on, he come to find out, he told me that later on, I found all this out right there at the farm where you live gathering, that apparently this had been happening to a number of people throughout the neighborhood. Now, up until that time, I'd heard something like that, and I just dismissed it at the time of being maybe this was some urban legend going around, until he told me that this happened to him, to his kids. And this isn't a guy that's easily given to exaggeration or hyperbole. So I believe him. This last weekend, turns out, completely different place, separated by maybe 100 miles, and hearing the same story unfold like that all over again. Same sort of thing, same sort of script, same sort of thing unfolding. A week ago, we have this creepy van parked out in front of my place. And believe me, y'all, this is not a soft target, if you know what I'm saying. Stands there. Creepiest thing, Michelle was there with me. Creepiest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I don't live in a place that you just happen upon. okay? Out there with this creepy van, every window, including the front window, like darkened, tinted, some kind of way. Very creepy, and both of us got the unction that maybe these people were up to no good either. Look, I guess it used to be the thing where you've heard about the Epstein thing and how they would groom these people to abuse them ultimately. Or all these kids that just come up missing and they're never heard of again. There are diabolical people in this world, and I know that everybody, not everybody, but a certain fair number of people, when they hear me talk about these things, they automatically chalk it up to conspiracy theory. Let me challenge you and say, can you say the word just conspiracy without then adding theory to it? Maybe it is a conspiracy. Maybe it's just a bunch of wackos out there, but at the end of the day, what is all this worth if you lose even a single member of your family? Especially to something as diabolical as what these people are doing, which I can't even state in this forum, which we'll talk a little bit about it in the podcast tonight. But I can't even go and tell you the full extent of what is happening with these people. Now, if I were to get on this microphone and tell you that I'm coming out as a trans-testicle polar bear, well, that's completely okay. But it's not okay for me to talk about the unthinkable things that are happening to these kids. Folks, I'm not saying this. I know that there's a certain number of channels right now that are engaged full-time, it seems, in hyperbole, in, high drama, all those things. We're a how-to channel. That's what we do. So when you see me sitting here right now talking about this thing, it is because I see this as my duty, as a public service announcement, to make everybody else, not to create fear, but to keep you aware. Remember, the tagline of our podcast is stay alert, stay alive. Well, that also applies to your kids. And even in some of the friendly places where, where you're thinking there may be a little bit of time to put down your guard, you just simply can't do it. When that sort of thing almost happened to myself and my brother, that was back in the early 80s. Can you imagine? I mean, it's so brazen now that they are going to rural properties seeking to do who knows what. So, folks, I'm not saying this in any way, shape, or form to create drama or anything like that. We just don't do that. It is to make you, at this time, in the United States of amnesia, to realize what is going on and how ubiquitous it's starting to become, how brazen it's becoming. All right, y'all. Hopefully this was a blessing to you. I just wanted to get on here quickly and deliver what it is I had to say. Till next time, y'all, stay alert, stay alive.